Anybody got any questions or thoughts as we get started here? Yek Katichti. Igukati dasawe dachidi again. Okay, so I thought we'd move back into the woman and frog story, and then we'll go back to the beginning Tlingit chapter, and I think we'll just kind of see where we're at from there, because then we'll move on to the chapter after the names and clans and everything. So if nobody has any questions, let's get started. I think a few folks will be showing up late. Some folks have, I think, tribal assembly. They're probably still voting because I think it's voting day for Tlingit and Haida, and it goes many rounds. So let me open the chat. So with a few of us, I'm just gonna walk through tell me where we left off. So here's Sháatk Shidhin Kau Koe has to toss a good shy, Kuadu to Yeti has to Kaya Nachyake. Has to Ani Dagige, where art claim Kudzati. Kledihinaya do keek tin, ya ayach de haswu art. Shidhini Xíxch ayach hasyawaki. Qua, yewe has ache. Shakshakay Sháatk Hasakawasháa. Kudachki Yaukshji. Yindishkaudatan Kaach Ayach Dach Aawasháa Xíxch. Awakshlitakt Outlaqaniye Awaka. Tachayanach away Teshi Yakus on. Tesh Adi Xíxch Aawasháa ye. A itach a ka kuch Aawasháa. I think that's where we left off the other day. Oh no, we did this one too, right? I think maybe this is where we left off. We taught yin stakatwa yaku yan haswu chechu Sháatk atwu good. Okay, so we'll follow the same routine. If I can get everybody should read. We'll all go one at a time. So if you've read once, just hang out until everybody's read. And if you haven't read, then read. And so basically you'll read it, I'll repeat it. And then I'll ask you what kind of words you recognize. And you can see the translation there. So one of the things that you can do to work in Tlingit is find, Hashuka, Hatu Nagu. Yes, there's books of translated Tlingit out there, and you could take a look at it and then see if you know how to translate it yourself. And if you're finding words you don't recognize, then we'll start figuring out what those words are and how they work. Okay, can I get a reader for this slide, this page? Don't be shy.
I'll try.
Xíxch.
Yées kaget uagut. Yées ausatin.
Xíxch. Yées kaget uagut. Yées ausatin. And any words you recognize in there?
Ka. And ausatin.
Okay. Yeah, so ka is a person or a man. There's two different ones. You can't really tell which one it is. Yées is an adjective. So we kind of talked about adjectives. We're going to take another look at them. So Tlingit doesn't have a whole bunch of them, but there are some, and they change a noun from being a man to a young man. So you could have ka, Yées ka, ka shan. So there you can have a man, you can have a young man, you can have an old man. And then there's a bunch of other things that could be on there as well. They don't all work for everything, because some of them have to do with raw food or green wood. Xíxch is a raw or like a green wood. But this one is new or young. Some people might say fresh. But yeast, so if you put yeast in front of anything, it's a new one of those things. And so Yées ka and Yées Sháatk are a young man. Kagate, this word, so kage is the sort of word, and then there's the letter T. We're gonna keep saying this T, right? This T is one of these directional things, which means it got there, right? So kagate is related to just the word gate. And it means to come up against something. It could mean sort of, the gate on its own could mean leaning up against something. It could also just on its own mean sort of doing something wrong. So you could say a gate would a git, which would be they broke the law. But in this case, when you say someone kagate uagut, they encountered them. They came up to them. They came upon them. So this is how two people could sort of, in English, you'd say like run into each other, right? Not literally, but you're like, hey, you know how I ran into you? That's what this would be used for kagate. Uagut means, yeah, she walked. So she came upon this young man. This one was pretty cool because this was how Xíxch, George Davis, translated it. He said Yées gawu. So we see the new there again, or the young. Gao is drum or time, or clock or a bell. But when he put this before a verb, that means it's the first time she had done that verb, which is really cool because some of those kind of finer point things get a little tricky. Like do this first, this is the first time I did it, haven't done that yet. They all get a little bit, they're very, very different from each other. So this, if it was like the first time you heard it, you could say, ha, Yées gawu awechoach. First time I've heard it. So it was pretty cool. I hadn't heard that before or since, but I thought that was really neat. Okay. Xíxch. Who wants to read this one? Fix something real quick while we're thinking about it. Ah.
Okay. Do na adi kachasatini said kasiyes u yach yati ye kawuta ka ye wuti kua dawak ka yati.
Okay, Xíxch. Do na ati kachasini sate kasayeyi tsu yachyati kawut akaye wuti koaduwak kayati. And are there words in there that you recognize? I'll fix that one too.
I know said.
Ah.
I know said for sure.
Okay. Yeah, there might be quite a few.
I hear ye wuti a lot.
Ye wuti. Kawut.
Yeah. Kawut is bead. Yeah.
Bean.
Do walk.
Okay. Okay. And if we took the d away from here, we would have na'at. don't know if you folks have heard that one before. So du na'adi is his, in this case, she sees him, and so these are his clothes. And qashetsini is valuable looking, looks fancy, looks like it's expensive. So qashetsin on its own means expensive. And so qashetsini seit, and there's the necklace. Kaseyeyi, so kaseye is a verb that means strange. And then you can make it into an adjective by adding this ye on the end. And so this I can sometimes be added to a bunch of verbs, especially like some kind of state verb. It works really well. Like yak'e is good. Yak'eyi ka, a good person. Yak'eyi shawat, a good woman. And so this one, so this is strange. And there's some cool words that have strange in front of them, like a thermos is kaseye gucha, a strange cup. If people go to the weed store around here, that's kaseye qanch, strange tobacco, right? So there's a couple words that have kaseye in there. So kaseye on its own is strange. So this strange su yati. So we have yati, wuti, yati, which are all the same verb, all in a row, right in this sentence here. Yati is to be. When you put yach in front of it, it means to be like something. And often you're going to have some noun there that as actually, that's how you talk about a color. So Tlingit has no actual words for colors. You know, it's not like in English you could say blue, red, green, white. And Tlingit, you'd say it's like snow, it's like a blue jay, it's like a plant, it's like, in this case, jade or green stone. Su yachyati kawut, strange green beads. So then yewuti or yeyati, yeyati is usually to be that way. But if there's something before it that talks about where something is, it means to be there. So you could say, Yakdat Yekhatyati, I'm in Yakatan. You could say, you know, so it could be a place. In this case, a ka is on it. So his clothes and this fancy expensive necklace, there were these strange green beads on it. They were on it. So that's yati is right now. Wuti is usually like before, yesterday type of stuff. Okay. Klo'a, although, to walk, her eyes. Then qayati, when you have qayati, that means it's pleasant. So to walk qayati is how you would say, it looked good, it looks good to her. So you should also say, akhwaq qayati, looks good to me. You could say, akhkukik qayati, it sounds nice, right? And so that's how these chunks are working. So with this story, like we'll read it, see the English, see what you recognize, and we'll just move through the pieces. Okay. Who wants to read this one?
I'll go.
I can read that.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead.
It's all you, man.
Do to walk, yaksean.
Okay, Xíxch, to walk on. Anything you recognize in there?
See, the do is sort of the genderless pronoun. Like to walk is sort of, it looks sort of like to woo almost. So maybe like in the imagination or inside.
Yeah. So there, we saw somewhere earlier, I think in here, do tu wu ye ti. Like that's how she felt. That's how she thought. Then a kind of a shortcut is do tu walk. That's how she felt, or that's what she thought. So this tu wu and tu wa are related to each other, but they are a little bit different. And we could tell because you could say, do tu wu sigu, they are happy. Do tu wa sigu, they like it or they want it. So very like similar things, but a little bit different. But to walk, and then usually if there's some verb after that, it's sort of like, that's how they were thinking about it, right? And so you could use this for a couple other, you could say, he was thinking about eating it. Do tu walk Aawasháa. He was thinking, so you could use it for different things. And then this just pops up on it sometimes, which is just something to watch for. It's something that just when you listen to speakers, you'll notice sometimes they just want to put that thing on the tu wa especially. So you could say tu wa sigu. But if you're going to say like, you can use an object pronoun for that phrase, tu wa sigu. So you could say tu wa isigu. But then it needs to be consensual, right? Like, I want you, right? And so that's how you would say that kind of thing. And that's usually, but that doesn't always have some sort of like, hey, baby type of vibe, but it could. But it could also be do tu walk isagu adeyugudi, which could be like she or he wants you to go over there, right?
And then the on sort of looks like land without the e, but yucks on. I mean, people call me that all the time, and I just don't know what it means.
Okay.
Just no idea. What is it?
Yes.
Oh, look, there's a translation. How about that?
Oh,
Weird.
The humility here, right? So,
oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed.
You had to turn your camera off, or we'll just be staring at you, right? There he
I'm
is.
doing everyone a favor. Here.
Doing the hair. Okay, yeah. So we had tesyakus on is the negative form of this. The verb root is on, which means like kind or gentle or pleasant. So if you change this to tushe, you have kind, tusha'an. In this case, yaksa'an, like a pleasant face. So that's how that one works. There are some other sort of interesting things that use this that are really good to know for being around kids and stuff. You're a teacher, a parent. I've heard it said several ways. Cha'an kunach, cha'aninach, and cha'anidach. All three of those things mean be nice or to do something kindly. Because we were trying to, I can't remember, one of us had, there were a few of us that had, kids right around the same time. We were working with some speakers. We're like, what if your kids just like pulling on the dog's ear? And they're just a little baby. They're just like, and you're trying to tell them to just be gentle. And that's what they told us, cha'an kunach or cha'aninach. Oh, okay. I was just catching things on the chat. Yep, okay. Who wants to read this one?
Ikashad aya hat khwagut. Ye ayaw sikha.
Xíxch. Xásháat aya hat khwagut. Ye Aawasháa. Any words you recognize in there?
Aya hat khwagut is here. This to here I came. And ye ayaw sikha is they said.
Yep, okay. Yeah, so here is a different way to say that other verb that we saw. Aawasháa, I think that was in the title, to marry somebody. And that was also like a bunch of guys want to marry. So this is an interesting way to use a verb. So if you're going to say, did this verb in order to do this verb, then the second one ends up looking pretty different, right? So if he was to say, I'm going to marry you, he'd say, Ik Aawasháa, or I married you, Ik Aawasháa. But in this case, Ik Sháatk. So it's a bit of an advanced thing, but at some point you're going to learn about what we call a hortative verb. And a hortative means let it happen, let's do it, let him or her do it. It's that type of thing. Let it snow. Those types of things are what are called a hortative thing. And some of you who've spoken Tlingit have used them. If you said nachtuat, that's a hortative form. Or if you say qatucha, that's a hortative form. And so that basically, if you find the hortative, you kind of just put a letter T at the end. And that's kind of the way it works. So you could say, we have the kids do a chant and they say, what did I say? Tlingit sati shtuqashtut hatchwakut. I came here to study our Tlingit. Wait, I can't remember, it was a chakosti. Oh, but so you could say hatchwakut Tlingit shtuqashtut. I came here to study Tlingit. And so it's a fun thing to learn how to do, and you'll see speakers use this. And then ye Aawasháa is he said it to her. So this verb right here, this Aawasháa, and sometimes you're going to hear Yawaka, both those verbs mean to say a specific thing. So it wouldn't be like, mom said it's dinner, mom says it's time to eat. That's a kawanik, to just give information. But you're like, mom said, if you don't come right now, she's gonna spank your butt. Like that goes into the Aawasháa thing. It's like, she said this exact thing, right? So there's just some subtle differences between some of these verbs. Okay, who was gonna read? Someone was right.
Kan nagu ya ak ish hidide.
Okay.
Oh, she's happy about it.
Any words you recognize in there?
The hidide is hit, but you're going to the house. And it's ak ish for, she's talking my father. Is the nagu, I think that's more walking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I don't know what the first word is. The kan.
Oh, does anybody know that one? That's a good one. Has anybody heard achin? Has anybody ever heard that? What is achin?
Achin kananik.
Yeah, so achin on its own is with me. Achit is to me, right? But then they're going to combine with certain verbs like achin kananik, tell me. You can also say chan kananik. So this is the cannot to the can't type of thing. So achin, with me, can become chan. It doesn't have to, but it can. Achit can also become chat. So you can hear people say chat etishi. They're not saying help the salmon. They're saying help me, right? So those are just a couple of, there's going to be a few different things that are like that you're going to hear. And so chan naku is a command, which is saying, come with me. And then it's him talking. We'll see that in a second. Ach ish hidide. So a couple of things. Yeah, so my father And because that's my father's house, it goes from hit to hidi, just like we talked about with that possessive suffix keeps popping up. Now we're seeing it all over the place, T to a D. Also, you would attach the directional thing after that. So, Xíxch hiti de, towards my dad's house. Xíxch hiti dach, away from my dad's house. And this kinship thing could change now. It could be Xáatk hiti de, to my auntie's house. It could be Isani hiti de, to your uncle's house, right? Just a little disclaimer. We had the disclaimer last class, don't laugh at frogs and don't laugh at animals and don't throw them and don't tell them they're ugly. Also, don't go with strangers who come to you in the nighttime. However, the way these stories work, there's a verb, Aawasháa. Sometimes those animals, you mess around, they're going to come for you. And so even though we're going to see some stuff in this story, it's because it's like those animals, they got some hechua, and they're just going to put that magic on you. And they'll say, come with me, we'll get married. And, you know, most people be like, wait, we're meeting each other in the nighttime? We got to get to know each other. Maybe you're a scoundrel. But in this case, it's like, poof, right? Okay. Can I get a reader?
Ja, ach, anich, wush gach to the Sháatk.
Okay. Ja, ach, nich, whoosh, gach tut Sháatk. Any words you recognize?
Anich, ach, anich, like my people, my village.
Yeah, well. Xíxch. Yeah, so on, again, inhabited land or a village or a really big boat, right? And then once you put the ach in front of it, now it gets that possessive marker, that locational one. This is the same type of thing as de, dach, nach. So de and that T that we were seeing as well. De is towards, dach is away from, nach is to go along or through. Means to be kind of residing or resting at. That letter T means to have arrived at or arriving at. So those are some of the main ones. We keep seeing them pop up. And so when you put this, the reason why this pops up here, because that's where this verb is going to happen. So this is how you would do stuff like this. So you say, we're going to eat at my house, right? Pandemic, after the pandemic. And so that's where these, and it could be a place name as well. So you could say, we're going to gather at Yendistaki, right? So this is how that thing works. Another thing it's really, so this is a future form. So whenever you see gach tu, that means we're gonna. Every time you see gach tu, it's we are going to. Gach tu at, gach tu cha, gach tu chek, gach tu tau, let's steal something. Whatever we're gonna do. In this case, we keep seeing this sha. There's the marriage thing again. Whoosh. When you put whoosh or whoosh directly in front of a verb, that means to do that verb usually to each other. If you put in, that means together. Wooch in gach tucha. We're going to eat together. Great. Whoosh gach tu dacha. We're going to eat each other. I'll take a finger, you have a toe, right? So you got to just catch those differences. And so that's why this is, we're going to marry each other. That's why you say, wushe gach tu steen. We'll see each other, right? Xíxch. Who wants to do this one? Oh, if you guys have any thoughts or questions, just throw them out. No worries.
I'll try this one.
Xíxch.
Ja, Yées Sháatk du tu yeyati we excuse me, we Yées ka tlach hunach yaksa ani ka het du yak satin jin.
Goodness, Xíxch. Yeah, Sháatk du tuwu yeti we Yées ka. Tlach chunach yaksa ani ka. Het du yak satin jin. Okay. Any things you recognize in there?
Yeah, the young woman, the small young woman in front of him, due to wu ye yeti we Yées ka. I guess the way this, I might be wrong, but the way this young man feels about this young woman.
Just the other way. Just the other way around. That's right.
Other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And it says tlach kunach yaksa ani, that ka het du yak. Okay, so I'm thinking that tlach kunach yaksa ani, like we talked about earlier, that I guess he's a very handsome man. Yaksa ani ka.
Yeah, well.
Het du yak satin jin. Now this kind of reminds me of the thing that we talked about that one time about shkalnik nuch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And satin is when you see somebody, so I'm thinking satin. I don't know so I'm guessing that means somebody you've seen before, like it's saying in the translation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Xíxch. Yeah. So this young woman, due to Wu Ye, and so this is something that Tlingit likes to do. Like if it tells you this person, if we just start naming somebody, that's who we're going to be talking about, right? And so that's why we know it's her. She's the one who feels this way. And it's called like front loading. So Tlingit's like, oh yeah, this person, this is how they feel, right? Because it's third person pronouns a lot in stories. Due to Wu Ye Yeti, this is how she feels or thinks. We Yées ka. And this is the neat thing, like you don't see anything like, there's another particle you could put in there to say about or something like that. But just when you say it in that order, we know that's how she feels about him. That's what this is what she's thinking of him, and so like Tlingit needs some kind of thing to link it there. I mean, English does, but Tlingit doesn't necessarily. Tlach is very, chunach is really, and if you want to use them both, that's the order they go in. Tlach chunach. Now it's really getting ramped up into Frank territory. And then yaksa'an is handsome. And then we see tlach chunach yaksa'anika. He is such a very, really handsome guy, person, man. And then hech du yach. So hech and satinjin are linked. What the hech or tlech does, if you're from an inland speaker, you might hear tish. You can also hear tlech, klech, hech, tish. All those mean not, and they will push the verb negative. So this verb is negative, but not only is it negative, if you just took the in off, you would have satinch. On its own, that would mean they see it every time, a specific thing. Like if every time I walked out of my house, I saw the same duck in the pond, exact same one. I knew it was the same one. Then I could use that verb. Or I saw the same person walk by my house every time. But so that ch one does like every time. But if you put hesh in front of it, it means hasn't happened yet. So this is it's a bit of a logic twist in Tlingit. So the positive way of using this verb, just like this, means all the time. But the negative means hasn't done it yet. And so it gets a little wild. So you could say, I haven't driven there yet, or gone by boat. And that's how you'd say it. And then this in pops up, the same one that was on dusagen. So that means that's another thing that gets added to the verb, which means used to be that way, but isn't that way now. So she had not seen anybody like him, but she has now. And then here's the yach. And so yach means like it, right? So that's the same one we were talking about with the colors. So you could say, if I was telling you about someone who was like me, ach yach yeticha. So that person who's like me, ach yach. And they could use that too. So there was a story about a girl who gave birth, and they were talking about when she was in the house. They'll build a little brush house right behind the main house a long time ago. And in the story, Saydiya, Mrs. Elizabeth Nyman, she says, just do yachketi yisha do khantu wakut kalchakut khaku kalchakut sha. So it's like just the ones who were like her would go near her, not any other person. So, and what she was saying is that a woman would go into a seclusion and only her mother and sisters would go near her, or maybe grandma, you know, but it would have to be a woman from the same clan. That's how those things would work a long time ago. Okay. Can we get another read?
I can go.
Xíxch.
Achtwasagu dushat chatwusati.
Xíxch. Achtwasagu dushat chatwusti. Anything you recognize in there?
Achtwasagu being I want to, and dushat that be married, or like shut his wife, and then chat being me or I, and chatwasaka wusati.
Okay, good. Xíxch. Yeah, so this is a really good example of how to put two verbs together. The way you start thinking about it is you put that same type of suffix as the possessive one on the second verb. I want to eat it. I want to go there. I want to tell you this, right? And so in this case, I want, and then du is him, shut is a wife, and then this is the verb siti. So like we learned, you could say chak nach chatsiti. I am Eagle Clan. And what this underlined X does is it marks what the thing is, right? So dushat chatsiti is how you would say, I am his wife. You know, and so, but what this happens is wusiti means to have become, right? So this is where it gets a little interesting. So if I got a new job, and my new job was being, I don't know, a police officer, right? And I could say, watchwin chatwusati. I have become this thing. So that's why that perfective marker would be there. And so because that marker is there, that's what, you'll learn this later. This is what causes the vowel to fall out of the classifier right there. So it goes from siti to wusiti to wusti. And that's how it's linked to this. Okay. Let's keep the story going. Who has, anybody not read yet?
That's like long and low, the last.
Which this one is.
Last page. We were explaining Wusiti.
Oh, yeah. So this city, yeah, that's going to be long and low. So like Wusiti, and same with Wuti. Those ones will both be long and low. Xíxch. And yeah, and so when we'll get into, at some point, I'm going to teach you how to do these perfectives, and then you'll know what that stem is going to be. Okay. Someone want to read?
I'll go.
Gonna choose.
Kinde shaksitan guchiat haskauduat late.
Gonna choose. Kinde shaksatan guchyat haskauduat. Any words you recognize in there?
Kinde
Mm-hmm.
and gooch.
And what are they? How would you translate
Oh,
those?
kinde is to go up or something going up, and then gooch is a hill.
Yes, and so there's a whole bunch of different variations of up and down, right? So K, so there's some kind of K sound on it, and then there's some kind of Y sound going down. And so you could say K and Yay, and you could say Kin and Yin, and you could say Kinde and Yinde, and Kinna and Yinna. So there's a whole bunch of ways to sort of talk about that. But when you have the day on there, that means like upwards, right? So Kinde, that's birds flying, things going up. But then when it comes in front of this verb, shaksitan, these two combine to mean steep. This verb kind of means for something to be leaning, and that's just how the Tlingit brain processes like a steep hill or a steep, something. And then you have gooch and then yet. So there's a couple things here. So gooch is a hill. A hill and a mountain have a couple of similarities. They have a base, ke. So you could say Sháatk at the base of the mountain. Sháatk, and you could have gooch da, which is around the lower part of the mountain or the hill. And when it starts to get towards the top, especially if it's something steep, and it starts to go like this, that's called ya, the face of it. Sha ya, gooch ya. The T is there because that's where they are. They have made it there. Haskauduat is a plural form for them to climb. Okay. Xíxch. Someone else. Not two.
I can go.
Xíxch.
Ach away yinde duck as waat klehinde.
Xíxch. Aawasháa yinde da kasuaat klehinde. And Kuchain, any words you recognize there?
Yeah, Doc, that song, Doc Yauk Lets Out.
Yeah, what?
I think of the shore. Hinde, I've seen Hinde as getting water in a school setting, but, that was at an elementary school, so I just recognize Heen.
Okay.
That's it for knowing the translation.
Okay, good. Xíxch. Away. So is a contraction of adach. So adach would be away from it. But when you say adach away or away, in the context of storytelling, it's like, aqa away is and then. Adach away or away is sort of saying from that. So it's a little bit more tying like cause and effect in there. So it's like, oh yeah, they went up this hill, and then after that, they went down this hill, right? Is really what it's sort of saying. So away yinde da kas uwaat. So there's a couple of things here. So yinde is telling you which way they're going, right? So you go, they went kinde, now they go yinde. And then the has uwaat is they went there. Then we have this dak thing. This word has lots of meanings. It's very fun, and it has an opposite. Anybody know what the opposite of dak is? I wonder if I've got my. Oh, that's not it. Shucks, hold on. I made a silly graphic out of it for my kids.
Oh, neat.
Okay, I'll try and find it on the break. Okay, so dock. The opposite of that is dock. Exactly the same, but you just put an underline under that K.
Right.
So dock on its own is this very useful directional thing. It can mean any of these things. From the shore out to sea. So that's why you say dock, gai, Xíxch, wei, de, yak, hey, hey, ha, because you're Xíxch, you're going to push it out to sea, push it out onto the water. Dock can also mean, like let's say there was some woods and then a clearing, and like some like deer comes walking out. That would be dock uagut. It came from the forest or the shadows out into the open. It could also be for precipitation to fall from the sky. And it could also be for something to go onto fire. It could be any of those things. Most commonly, it's coming out into the open from the woods or the shadows or going out to sea. For this one, it's sort of like, so we already knew that they were on the hill. They went up to the hill. They came down the hill and off away from it. That's how it's working here. Keh is it's a little word that means then, but it's not used the same really as it is in English. Just keep an eye out for it because you'll see keh and chukeh. And it could mean things were happening at the same time, one right after another. But in this case, they came down off of the hill and then into the water. And when you say hinde, you're usually talking about just going right into the water.
Into the water.
Right, as opposed to Aawasháa would be going down to the beach. Xíxch if it's the ocean. So we talk about lakes and oceans differently. But hinde or hini, sometimes you'll hear it as hini. So if I said hinde naku, and you had to listen to me, you would walk right into the water.
Right.
Okay. Can I get another reader?
Shita ayawuki kacha kugei wayana good hinde.
Okay. Heshta ayabushti
Kacha gei wayana good hinde.
What things do you recognize there?
Here. Yana good hinde.
Does anybody recognize any words in there? Which one? Yanagut. Yeah. So Yanagut is for someone to be walking, right? They singular person are walking. What else, folks?
What about that kugeyi? Kugeyi. When I think of kugei, I think of something large, but
there's yekuge, but that's a different one. Yekuge is something. It's this big, right? Yekuge away. Fish that was that big, right? Akugeyi is a little bit. It's a different thing.
Okay.
But that's an important one to get. Sometimes there's one speaker I'd work with, and she'd get a little fired up sometimes, and she'd say, "Hey, I was like, okay, I know." And so if you did something chakugei, it's probably not great.
It's not.
Is your hint.
Sloppy or something?
Sloppy, any old way, haphazardly, just, just any old way. And not in a good, that's not a good thing, right? Usually when they're saying that, they're just sort of saying it's carelessly. Okay.
I think it starts with he and sh, and the hill is a knot, and the sh is herself.
Yes. Yeah. So this SH right here is a kind of almost like an opposite to whoosh. So whoosh or whooch would be together. Chush, or just the SH, sh, is to the self.
Right.
So then you're going to get da, which is around. Okay. Shta is around yourself. And so there's shtu is inside yourself, right? And so there's different ways that these can be used. But once you see this SH just kind of on its own, that's usually saying to the self. And if it popped up right before the verb, so, like you've heard chwasatin, but if you said shwadzatin, would be I saw myself, like in a mirror or something, in a photograph. Here, ayabushqin would be, this is a cake dialect, so ayabushqin is how it would be in some other parts. So it means to look around, right? To look, right? And usually this yah kind of isn't there, right? And so we might see this in different sort of ways. Like people say, it's good to look upon your faces, basically. But in this case, she didn't, it's a bit of a metaphor, right? Sometimes I'll say this, something similar to my kids, which I'm saying, what? Look around yourself. Because sometimes, kids are just chakugi all the time. I'm trying to tell them, like, don't run into people, don't, And so in this case, like, she wasn't even looking around herself. So what they're talking about here is like, it's as if she didn't even notice, right? Because something unusual is happening. And then just kind of recklessly, she just walks right into the water. Because human beings don't usually just walk into the water. And she's going to go way down to the bottom.
Is there another kuge that sounds familiar to that means something else?
There's Chayegugink. There's Aawasháa. There's
my great grandfather's name sounds like Chakuge.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Probably not Chakuge.
No.
It could be Chakuge, and it's pulling that Yekuge verb. Like it's like just this size or just this many. Mm-hmm. This is where it gets really interesting. You could say Yekuge. And depending on what I just said, like if I said Yekuge wa achidi, and if I just told you like I'm just saying this, that's how big my house is. But if I said Yekuge wa achidki, that's how many houses I have. So it could be a number, and it could be a size. So it's same thing. Back to my fishing story. I caught a fish this big. Now I'd say I got 10 sockeyes today.
Okay. I won't go to the deep end. I was going to ask you about the size. Mm-hmm. I'll leave it.
No, go ahead.
Well, that name kudoat, the size of a fin, or the measurement of a fin. How does that become a measurement that in kudoat? Koduat.
Yeah, so it depends if it's wat or yat.
Wat.
So wat is on its own, it's like outstretched arms. So then wat also becomes a fathom. So then yekut de wat. So when you put the ku in front of it, that means you're comparing it to something. So that's why you say yeksugenk or yekusugenk. And so it's got this W or U sound in there. So yeksugenk means it was this small. Yekuge, it was this big. So you're comparing it to something. And that's why the ku is on there. So in that case, yekuwat would be like, it was like a fathom.
That makes a lot of sense. Xíxch.
Okay, 2 more than break time, and then we might finish. We might do something else. We'll see how folks are doing. Who hasn't read yet? Anybody?
Duchanatin Yées hin tade haswuat.
Xíxch. Duchanatin Yées hin tade haswuat. What words do you recognize there?
Chana, partner. Tin, is that with? Xíxch, the young gal. Heen, water. Haswuat, they went. I'm not sure, but Tade.
Anybody got any thoughts on Tade?
Maybe like the Hintak Xíxch.
Yes. So there are a couple of kind of these location words where there's sometimes like a K on the end, like take could be a take is behind something, but sometimes that K can just sort of go away and get replaced. And that's what happens here. So heen talk, it could be anywhere from deep enough to submerge to all the way down to the bottom, right? And so it's really interesting because talk on its own is like at the bottom of some sort of cavity, some big thing, right? And so things can talk in a boat if you're talking about all the way down at the bottom of the boat. If you say get in the boat, you're usually saying yik. But so like we're going to start talking about these directions and these location things quite a bit because they're different in Tlingit than they are in English. And so in this case, duchanatin, with her chana. If you say chana, a lot of people they're just going to interpret that as spouse. So that's getting pretty serious. But it literally means the one beside them. That's all. So chan is beside, is one or the ones. Tin is with. You'll also hear een. They're kind of interchangeable, although een is often with people and then tin is often non-people. But in here we see that's a highly fluent speaker who gave us a sentence. So it's not a hard and fast rule. It's just sometimes, usually like that. This young girl, heen tade haswuat. So in this case, we've already had heen. They already went in the water. We know they went in the water. So if we say heen, then the next sentence is heen tade. They're going down the bottom. That's where they're going. That's one before break time. Let's get a reader.
Ha lle diinde ya a hintaka has ya a
Xíxch. Ha lle diinde ya a hintaka has yawa at. Do you recognize any words there, Sháatk?
has for they, right?
Yewa.
Which way?
Okay. Xíxch. So this ha is surprise, right? So this is something you can say if something's surprising to you, right? So this is this little interjection. There's a whole bunch of these. They're kind of hard to, some of them are hard to translate. This one's pretty straightforward. This is like, whoa, you know, that kind of thing. Here's kle again, then, deyinde, down low, down below, right? So they're going downwards. So deyin and then de, you get deyinde, way down below, right? Ya, this, lake, hintaka. So hintaka combined would be at the bottom of the lake. And then has yawa ut. The difference there, this yawa ut is just kind of, they're just walking. So it's a little bit different when we sort of pull this, we put this ya on there. It's just talking about like their act of walking, right? So it's like, oh my. Then way down, they're just walking on the very bottom of the lake. So that's how this stuff all kind of adds together. And so Tlingit does a lot of things where it's, sometimes there's a bunch of little parts, and that goes for words. And then sometimes there's a bunch of words that together form this bigger concept. And combined, that's how you're getting. Because when a storyteller is talking, like for human beings to go walking on the bottom of a lake is very strange. So they've got to really sort of set that up. And so that's what the speaker did here, was just sort of continuing to kind of repeat a little bit, but just keep tweaking it. They went in the water, then they went down the deep water. Oh man, they're way down on the bottom, just walking around. Okay, Xíxch. Take 6 minutes, so we'll come back at 6:40 and we'll check in, see how folks are feeling, doing. We could switch over back to beginning Tlingit, the workbook, or we can keep going with this. We'll see how the group feels, so think about it. Take a little break. Okay, folks. What's the wishes of the group? What do you guys want to do? We got the next chapter in the beginning Tlingit workbook. Start working through that. More of this.
I like the book, but that's just me, I guess.
We got one vote for the story.
Two for
The
the
second.
story.
Story.
Always down for a story.
Story. It's Sháatk.
Okay, Xíxch is gonna pull this out. Victory. Okay.
It's pretty challenging.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun because you know the English is right there. That helps. But then just to sort of see, and what's gonna happen. Okay. Anybody who wants to read, don't make us just sit around and wait. If you haven't read yet, you should. Even if it's gonna be hard, don't worry about it.
Dutat away Yées Sháatk in ka stakat Yakuu Ausitin hel at Kusti.
Xíxch, Tutat awe, Sháatk in Kastakat Yakuu Ausitin hel at Kusti. Okay, what do you recognize in there?
Sutat morning time.
Mm-hmm.
Away kind of a filler. Is that what you say?
Yeah.
Yées Sháatk, the young woman. Ka and stakat every thing.
Yeah, all or every, then what just kind of after. Yep.
Ausitin and Kusti.
Okay, so what is Ausitin?
Like seeing?
Yeah, okay. Good as cheese. Okay.
Kusti. I don't know Kusti.
Hwasa.
Plus
Okay. So walking through this, so we have Tutat awe. So there we are, like in the morning. So yeah, that awe, just keep an eye out for it. You're gonna get a feel for it. Sometimes it's just you need a little pause, collect your thoughts. Awe is a really nice substitute for You just sound like just so much more Tlingit if you just switch from to awe. Then sometimes it just separates a couple things. Like we just need, it's gonna smash together a little bit too much. So it just feels good to just throw an awe in there. And it doesn't even kind of mean anything. It's just a little separator. So that's kind of what's going on here. So Tutat awe. And now we just say, oh, in the morning, comma, this young girl. Anybody know what in Anybody ever hear that?
Family.
Yeah, family, right? So this is how you would say like the mother, father, sisters, brother, like the sort of the getting into the nuclear unit, right? So a whole bunch of kinship terms are clan based, right? Like Tachian could be a sibling, but it could just be someone who's the same clan as you. But this one, in is usually like your biological family. It's usually what it means. Kashtakat yaku'u. So here we have shtakat, and whenever we hear shtakat, we're going to listen for what's coming just after it, because that'll tell us all the what. Shtakat ka, all the people. Shtakat at, everything. Shtakat yagi, all day long. In this case, tu'u, all the people. And which people? That's the people of the village, right? So we sort of get it put together for us by those sort of things, the context of what's also out there. Ausitin, so they saw it. And then what about this? Hesh, let's just take the at out of there. Hesh kusti, what is that? Anybody know what that is?
I thought it had something to do with life.
Okay.
Nothing of her life, sort of.
Okay, we're all on the right track here. So yes, so let's take this verb. So here's the verb in the positive imperfective form. Qudzati. It exists. So the way that sometimes one of the ways you can make nouns, or that Tlingit makes nouns out of verbs, is it presents the verb in a way that it cannot be a verb. Because you can't say kuste on its own. If you say kuste, that means life. So there's a bunch of ways. You want to say, this life is tough, it's hard. You could say that. This life is good. Right? So that, and then you can also possess that. My life. Our culture. Right? That one changes a little bit. So kudzati, in front of it we see hesh, which pushes the verb negative. Hesh kuste, it doesn't exist. So for example, you might work with a speaker and you'll say something like, let me think of something. Wasa do a Sháatk way, trying to think of something we didn't make a name for yet. Wasa do a Sháatk. Everything I think of, we made a name for it. What's something we haven't made a name for yet? Wasa do a Sháatk, Jupiter, Tlingit. And the speaker might say, its name doesn't exist, right? So in this case, she doesn't exist. If they said it doesn't mean she's now. It's interesting. It doesn't exist is what it means. But when we get the ut here, it means there. So this means she wasn't there, right? And so there's some other things, like you could also say would literally be she wasn't there. She's not there. But in this case, once you switch to this verb, it's gotten pretty dramatic now, right? She's supposed to be there, but she isn't. So it's almost as if she doesn't exist because they're kind of shocked that she isn't there. So just like the words you pick and stuff are just interesting to me. Xíxch. How about a reader for this one?
Scott yet as Kushi du iga.
Okay. Kat yet has Kushi du iga. What words do you recognize there?
Well, the kat for all. But that's about it.
Awesome. Anybody else see anything in there that you think is familiar?
Is Yées short for Sháatk?
No. That is a very good guess. Okay. So there's this word in here, yeah. Y, high-toned E. It has two basic uses, the place or the way. So it could be the place, and so you usually see it sometimes on verbs. Like you could say, the place where Raven walked along, maybe, right? And then you can see it used as the way. So you might hear someone say, it was good the way that person spoke. But here, the cut ye, that is a really interesting one because it could mean two different things. It could mean all over the place, or it could mean all kinds. It's just something that you gotta learn how to just grasp. Or maybe it's just one of those things you just got to accept, right? Because you could say, wagut. I went everywhere. But then you can also say Xtakatyete kaututisek we kuhida. The pencils are all different colors, all different kinds. So Xtakatyete could mean all over the place or all different kinds. Depends how it's being used. But in this case, we instead of day, you have the T, to arrive at. Xtakatyete, all over the place. And we know it's because then this verb, haskuashi, they were looking. They looked all over the place. And then we have du'iqa, for her. Okay, so, but this kind of for, to say du'iqa, it only works for looking for or waiting for. It could also work for like going after. Like, let's say my kids have been at the neighbors for too long. They've been just playing with the other kids over there, and I was like, everybody say there's no pandemic. This is just imaginary. I'll say, I'm gonna go get them. I'm gonna go after them, right? So that it could mean to go after. It could mean if there's some verb that has to do with sitting or standing or just being still, this one could mean to wait for. I'm just gonna sit here and wait for you. But in this case, I'm looking for you. Right, so that's what this verb, and so the way we sort of, that Tlingit works when we start putting things together is you have a couple things like that, du'iqa and xtakatye, where it could mean a couple different things. But once we put the verb in there, it kind of pulls it all together into, they looked everywhere for her.
I got a question about the Kushi.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, I would thought like if you were looking at, you looked for something, or wouldn't be, I was thinking Hoten. What is the difference between Kushi and Hoten?
So Hoten would,
Hoten.
That's like I saw it. Right, so it's like I saw this, or there's also this other word, Hote. Hote is like I found it. And there's two ways to say I found it, which is really interesting. You say akachwashi and Hote. So for example, I'm walking along and I see a key. Hote, katicha Hote. I just came upon, I just found it. It was just there. But if I was looking for my keys and I found them, akachwashi. Because the verb root on here is to touch. So it's I'm feeling around for it. That's kind of how it works. Yeah, speakers say Hote a lot, even for something that they were looking for. So there's something I haven't quite figured out, the difference between those two. Because I know we're playing like, I'm talking about playing hide and seek, and I tried to use Hote, and they said no, because you're looking for. So then, ikachwashi. For all you hide and seekers, there you go. Okay, another reader.
Sakureya, Sakureka, Ka Kus Iti Has Austin.
Satkuyeka Kakus Ite Has Ausatin. And what do you recognize there?
The Sháatk, I feel like familiar. But no, not much. The Has.
Aawasháa. So this is this word satkuyeka is how you say finally, right? And so it's a really interesting word. It's one that actually I hadn't heard a whole lot. And then I went to this meeting, and maybe it's just something where like I didn't know what it was, so I didn't remember or something. But we had this meeting, and these elders were talking about things that they didn't hear very much anymore. And then someone brought up Satkoyeka, and they were saying like, at long last, finally. And so for inland speakers, they'll say Dehua as opposed to this one. And then you might hear people say Satkuweka with a W instead of a Y. And then you have Ka. Oops, that should be low. Oops. So this would be a person's, not a man. This would just be a person's. Us is a foot.
The ET is left over.
Yeah, ET is what's left. So Us ET is a footprint. Has Ausatin, they saw it. So finally they saw some footprints. So there's a bunch of things in Tlingit that have to belong to somebody. You can't just have footprints, they gotta belong to something or someone. And so in this case, this is where we call it the fourth person. It's just a person, somebody's, right? Okay. Anybody not read yet? Or anybody only read once? Now's a good time to try it out.
I didn't read yet because I was on my community council, central council executive meeting. Sorry.
No, finish Xíxch.
Hinde has akawake wake.
Finish Xíxch. Hinde hasakawake. And are there any words you recognize in there?
Hinde.
Mm-hmm. To the water.
To the water. That, yeah. Has, multiple, plural.
Yes, them. They are the ones doing it. So whenever has is in front of a verb, that means there's a they in there somewhere. And then a kawake. This is a very cool verb. And you'll also hear a kausake. You can hear kawake or kausake. And this is one of there's a few Tlingit verbs where it has like a whole bunch of different meanings, and this is one of them. So a kawake could be tracking footprints, or like if you're hunting and you see like you start seeing those deer or moose footprints and you follow them, that's a kawake. A kawake is also if you were weaving something and then you undid it. You took the weaving apart for whatever reason. Also, if you were sewing something and then you needed to rip it back, so take some of those stitches out, same verb. And also if you had like a ball of yarn and you were untangling it, same verb. So it's really cool. So in this case, they followed these footprints to the water. And once you say hinde, again, hinde means to go into the water, as opposed to achayach would be, they saw that the footprints went to the beach of the lake, but hinde means they go, and that's why the drawing shows them going straight in. There is a story called Akutatzin. Sometimes they call it Salmon Boy, or Shanyak Utlach, the moldy end. And this young man got taken by the salmon for about a year, maybe 2. And when he came back, when they tell that story, he went to this place called Katawuksakeyihin, which is sometimes translated as peaceful river. But the literal interpretation is the river that untangles a person's mind. It's a very cool concept. And so I really like that verb. I really like it. Okay, who wants to read this one?
Une, could you please say the name of that river again? I missed part of it.
Katawuksakeyihin. So the tuwu and the it would be kasakei, but because that vowel runs into it, it knocks the vowel out of the ka. Katawuksakei hin. I put it in the chat.
Xíxch.
Oh, where did I go? Okay, who wants to read this one?
I can read that one.
Xíxch.
Ausatin ka chusati hinde wuhlishu.
Xíxch. Hus ausatin kachus iti hinde wuhlashu. Any words you recognize in there?
Hinde again, and I recognize hus ausatin, but I couldn't translate that.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, so hus ausatin would be they saw it. And so once we see this hus, it's either a they or a them or a both. And this is where Tlingit gets a little bit funky sometimes, because hus ausatin could mean, let's just say it's a girl. She saw them. It could also mean they saw her. And it could also mean they saw them. So you get it from the context, right? And every language has certain things. It's just like, it's just a little tricky. It could mean any of those things. So they saw kakus ite, these persons' footprints, hinde, into the water. Has anybody here heard wushashu or something similar?
Yeah, kawashu.
That's a different shoe. That's a different shoe.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, so kawashu, that verb root actually means to suffer. So wushashu means to extend towards. So this is, again, another really neat Tlingit concept. Because if there's some road, and I might say, Gudesa wushashu yade. Where does this road go? Because it extends somewhere. And then they could, this one is also, I think, buried in the counting. So you say, Tlaich, Dech, Nusk, Dakun, Kejin, Tlaich Duashu, Dachdu. So someone, a person extends one, a person extends two, a person extends three. Gushuk, Gushwushuk, the thumb is smiling. Jinkat, two hands together. So again, it's a cool verb, wutashu. And then the day part is on there too. So you could say the answer could be Deshu de wutashu. This road goes to Haynes. Who wants to read this one?
Yées Aawasháa Sháatk.
Xíxch. Yées Aawasháa Sháatk. Okay, what do you recognize there?
Yées Aawasháa. I could just say that the Yées is like they did it, like somebody, multiple people did that with the Chunach. And Sháatk is young woman.
Okay, so this Aawasháa is a good one to know as well. It's like to believe or to suspect or to think that something is a certain way. So for example, if someone asked me a question and I told them, like, so what's this called? And I told them, and I might say, Yehwaji, like that's what I think. And so there's a number of different ways to talk about sort of uncertainty or sort of just what people are assuming, kind of. It's really interesting. And so this is a big, long word, and it means literally drowning. And there's ways. I'd have to look at it later to figure out how it pulls apart. But there's something about like something being removed, or it's a very, grammatically there's a bunch of things going on in there, which signals to me that we're people by the ocean, so drowning is probably something that does happen on a regular basis. And so we've got a very complicated term to talk about it, which means it's probably a really big deal. So Yées awaji. So then this is another thing. So now you could tie two verbs together. So I could say, Yehwaji ach ayi awatau. I think they stole my thing. So that's where you're putting the pieces together. That's a yehwaji type of verb. I believe that that's the thing, but you're not clearly stating it. You're saying, I think that's how it is, right? And so another thing would be, someone could say, kungao saya, and you might say, kedu shugao. So kungao saya, what time is it? You might say, kedu shugao, 6 o'clock. And I'd say, I think it's after that, though. I think it's later, right? Okay, Xíxch. Next reader, give it a shot.
Ishan Dain Gach Da Yées Aawasháa.
Okay. Many pieces you recognize in there.
Ishan. Yeah, other than that.
Xíxch, okay. So Ishan is poor thing or pitiful. Ishan Dain. So there's this other thing, Dain. You're going to see it pop up now and then. This is going to take something, usually some kind of verb root, and make it into an adverb. So that means you're doing, whatever the verb is, you're doing it this way. So shagao is loud. Shagao Dain yuche watan. They talked loudly. Ke is good. Kedain yeausane. They did a good job. Right? So this Dain is going to pop up. There's quite a few of them. Ishan Dain is to really, they're just sorrowful, pitiful. Qach da shiyi is a cry song. So qach is cry. Sh is song. So qach da is about. Da shiyi, a song about crying. It's basically how it gets put together. Then Aawasháa, they sang. They pitifully sang their cry song, or a cry song. Okay. But it's going to get better, right? It's not all sad yet.
Plague Yagi Yi away ya Tlingit ani dach ka ya a kayak de wugut. Aga away Ausatin ya Yées Sháatk.
Xíxch. Caichigi away ya Tlingit ani dach ka ya ach ayach de wugut. Aqa'awe Ausatin ya Yées Sháatk. What do you recognize?
Plague Yagi Yi one day away a filler again, kind of.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, Tlingit ani dach, like the Tlingit land outside or something. Outer away. Yakshay.
From.
Ah.
Yeah.
Bugut. Aga away. Like once again, or.
And then
they seen Ausatin, the young girl. Sháatk.
Yeah, wow. So again, Tlingit is, when we got stories, what Tlingit likes to do is if they tell you somebody, then they're the ones who are probably going to do the thing. That's a really good sort of guess. Is, oh, they said that this guy from the village, he must be the one who's going to do something, or else they would talk about him last. That's just the way Tlingit likes to work. And so, because sometimes it gets a little confusing who's doing what, and Tlingit has some ways to just sort of take care of that. When you put those together like that with that suffix, it's just it's a storytelling device. One day. So we're just jumping forward in the story. That's what it's doing.
Is that the same as that Clech Dehin?
Yeah. So you can say Clay Dehinoa. That's how you, this is a great way to start a story. One time. But then as I'm telling the story, that's just like saying, then some other day. Right? It's just jumping ahead. That's what that part of the thing is doing. And George Davis was a really good storyteller. So I really like some of the things. And so was March Dudson, who were the ones who translated this. Tlingit ani dach. So they're using Tlingit ani because they know this is a story about animals and people interacting with each other. So they got to sometimes say, from the people's village. There's another story about this Kushi that was under a rock singing. And he's like, Gusu Tlingit ani. Where's the village of the people? I'm lonely for them. So here we have Tlingit ani dach ka, this guy from the village. Ya'ach ayach de wugud. So a lot of times when you have something moving around, we like to have it going somewhere. He went down to the lake. Aqa away, and then Ausatin. We're still talking about that guy. He saw her. You know, they saw them. It's all, there's no gender there, right? But just to keep track of it in English, this young girl. Okay. Xíxch. Let me read it.
Oh, I'll try that one again. Kut kat a kadudach yasaki Xíxch.
Okay. Kat a kadudach yasaki Xíxch. So what do you recognize? Yeah, that's mud. That's a fun word. And for something gets muddy, it's kaushakutk. So just these, it's really two consonants there, the TL and then the K apostrophe W. It's right at the end, which is next time you see mud, just say its name. It'll be fun.
Okay.
Can you say it one more time?
Yeah. It's a very fast word.
It sounds like a onomatopoeia.
Kind of like, yeah, if you're gonna like step in it, it's gonna go. There's another one. If it's really cold and you step on the snow, it goes. That's the creaking sound. Underline G, high tone EE, underline X apostrophe. Okay, what kind of words? What do you recognize in here?
Kat a kadudach. Dach, is it? No, it's not around, right?
It is.
Yes, it is. Okay. I was thinking daka.
Daka is around the outside, like surrounding things.
Dach is in the inside.
Well, da is around. But now, so this, and we're going to learn how these things work. But you have this type of thing, which I like to call a base, which means it's a word that belongs to something else. It has to have something before it. Du, da, ach, da, a, da. Then it can take a suffix. So you could say du, dot, du, da, de, du, da, dach. In this case, du, dach. So there's a number of these things we've been talking about. The X apostrophe, to be located, resting, or residing there. The T, to be at there, but have kind of recently arrived there, maybe. Then we've got this one, which means to keep going there, to go there repeatedly, or to be kind of moving around there. So when you say du dach, it's like all around her. Like all, not just like at one spot, it's, they're all over.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yasaki, is that where she's sitting?
So is for one person to sit.
Really? Okay.
And in this case, ki is for multiple people to sit.
Oh, Xíxch. The frogs are sitting together, right?
Yes, you're kind of sitting upward, right? That's how I like to think of that. So cut she is sitting on the mud. Dudach yausaki Xíxch, and these frogs are all around her, sitting all around her.
So the yausaki doesn't need hus because it's in the verb that it's a group?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how that works. If you were talking about people, you'd probably say, you'd probably throw the hus in there. And it's something I might look at too. And just sort of going through when the speakers translate this, there's a couple spots where I think a hus might need to be added later. So there's a whole series of these stories. There's like a draft version of it if you wanted to get it. But I still need to proofread a few things. And some of it is just like that. It's like, well, that's how they said it, and they're like the master speakers. But then I would probably suggest saying hus yausaki if you were to say it on your own. Okay, so I want to read this one.
Hildakat yadudach yausaki. Yausaki.
Kat yadudach yausaki. And any words you recognize? We just went over them, but yeah. Walk us through.
Hildakat and dudach all around her. Yausaki is the plural of them sitting. Because I just learned all that. Hooray!
Okay. Yeah, someone pointed out something that I maybe missed in the chat. So we're going to switch to something real quick and talk about words of encouragement, which is good for a situation when you need to comfort somebody, and they're also good when you need to sometimes just support each other. I think learning Tlingit is difficult, and it's difficult all the time. And you can go for years and years and years and be upset about where you're at. But there's also times when our language is required to help people out. In particular, when something tragic happens, someone's having a hard time, and it could vary, like when is the appropriate time. For example, if someone stands up and they're giving a speech and they start to get really emotional and overwhelmed to the point where maybe they think they can't finish or something, even just like when that voice starts to shake and you can see, if that is your Kani, if that's your clan opposite, it's perfectly okay to yell at them. Words of encouragement. So I like to think of this as spiritual strength, words of encouragement, things that we can do to support each other. And our language is medicinal. It's also really interesting because like sometimes people are just giving a speech and someone's yelling at them. Not all the time, but there's just these certain things that they'll say. So I want to go over a few of these things just in terms of they might be useful for you and for a variety of occasions. Some of these things, and I'll talk a little bit about maybe some context for them, but one to know right off the bat, and there's two different ways I hear people say this, and so we'll learn both. And then we'll also learn how to pluralize it. So the first one, Iku aya khwan. Iku aya khwan. And that can get kind of short. So you can hear people say Iku aya khwan, or you might hear people say Iku aya khwan. And then people say Gu khwan. It can get really short sometimes. If you want to say it to more than one person, instead of you'll say ye. Ye gu aya khwan. The second way you'll hear this is instead of gu'a, you'll hear du'a, which certainly signals to me this is a verb. Du'aya khwan. And so in the context of like using social media sometimes to communicate, if I'm trying to really just say like, go be brave, you could do it, I'll put an apostrophe, I'll put an exclamation point after that. But if someone has recently lost somebody, I'll just use a period. Just so it seems, just as far as like how to write Tlingit, for me that just softens it a little bit. We usually use exclamation points because there's a command there. Some of these are commands, some of them are something else. So to tell someone to have courage, I guess is where you could say it. Yeah. So this here again, we see the two wu, the thoughts, the feelings, the spirit, the emotions, the intentions. Then we have Shatzin or Shitzin is how it's in the imperfective, to be strong. So you could say strong spirit, strong thoughts, however you want to think of that. This is the command form. So you are commanding somebody to do this. And the way you say it is Ituwu Klatsin Cha.
Ituwu Klatsin Cha.
Ituwu Klatsin Cha. So you do have the Klatsin with that K on there, which can be tough to just go. There's a number of things. Sometimes it's going straight from one consonant to that L is tricky. Other times going just straight from the L to it, like when you say the cut, a lot of people want to put an A in between them. Not the cut, but it's the cut. And in this case, it's klatsin. Okay. You are succeeding. And this one, I think I talked about before. The way an elder explained it to me, it's like you're just going through the storm and you're in your canoe, everybody's paddling, and you see the land. Yande ya yanay tlak.
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 Yeah, and this one, it's a plural, so you all are succeeding. Oops. Okay. So that one is not a command. It's just like this is something happening right now, right? So in the context, I heard, so as a group was doing their cry song, it was very sad at Aawasháa. Their leaders was yelling this at them, like, and there's a certain register. And when you're there and you know Tlingit, you could just feel the strength. It's like someone's really just giving someone strength when they're doing stuff like that. This one is a future form. We are going to work together. Wuch in ye jigach tune.
Wuch in ye jigach tune.
Wuch in ye jigach tune.
Wuch in ye
jigach tune.
Okay. So this one, the verb here means to warm something up. So yata is something is hot or warm. Shita, when you switch that, sometimes this classifier will switch to say it's not just like that. Somebody made it like that. And then you can warm up somebody's spirit. That's literally what you're saying. And this is saying, and this is a hortative form. We're going to just keep sort of dropping that kind of stuff. You're going to hear it, and then eventually you're just going to know what. But hortative is let it, let us, let me, let them. So the let is part of there. So if you want to say like the Tlingit version of let it snow, you're going to get a hortative verb. And the hortative verbs are very powerful. This is how Raven talks. Whenever he wants something to happen, he would always use hortative forms. It's just when that Raven book comes out, you'll see. So let me comfort you. Ituwukashta.
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 Okay. Let me make sure. Well, we'll do all of these. But this is another good one. I'm gonna jump around a little bit. We'll come back and do all the others. So here's the around part. So around, and then here's the T. We have arrived at you. And then this is the plural form for us to be standing. So this is literally saying we're standing around you. And it's almost like we're right up against you and we could touch you. It's almost like that. But it's a metaphor for we are supporting you. Idat tunak.
Idat tunak.
That's got to be long. Idat tunak.
Idat tunak.
Idat tunak.
Idat tunak.
So I'll put this up so you folks could see the others. We're running out of time, but to unite ourselves, to watch over something. This is the verb for like the watchman on top of the totem poles, you know, or someone who's guarding the village or protecting it. To be with someone. This is just a nice verb, right? I'm happy to be with you. To have faith in someone, to hope for someone, to comfort, let me help you. And sometimes you gotta have some things too. You're gonna, you know, sometimes you just gotta let people know this is gonna be hard. You're gonna go through it, you know. It kind of depends, right? If we're dealing with grief, there's a whole Tlingit process, which is complicated, but basically it comes down to like ituwushatik, which is like hold your spirit, like something that's full that you gotta hold with, you know, like if you get something really full, you gotta brace it, right? Because this tik means to be frozen or hardened. So they're gonna get tense to just hold on to that thing. So it's really neat to think about this stuff.
Yes.
When you come to it, to answer the question, so you could change this one. You could say "I'in hasati Xíxch kohas." Your ancestors are with you, or you could say "Idat hasnak away Xíxch kohas." Our ancestors are around you. Because you could call on those old people to come and help when the situations call for it. And so, yeah, a lot of these work for a variety of different situations. It depends on how well you know the person. It depends on the, when we get into like funerals and how you speak at funerals as opposed to how you speak at ku'i, we don't have time to go into that, but the short version is the funeral speeches are very short. Give strength to the clan that just lost someone. And if that's same clan as you, thank the opposite clan for helping them and tell them that you're gonna help them.
Yes.
At the pu'ik, it's longer. Then sometimes it's longer, but it also kind of depends. And we really give people a lot of room. Like, you got a year, fall apart, have a hard time. It's hard stuff. But then when that year ends, you start trying to encourage them to turn the corner. And I've seen the stuff go wrong sometimes where like some people are basically just saying, get over it, it's been a year. It's like, hey, take it easy, you know. But the way that our language has stuff that's, there's these certain phrases that are really good for stuff like this. Which one did you want me to type out?
Do you have anything on how to address your opposites?
Yeah, we can, it'd be fun to do some stuff like that.
Yeah.
We'll do a day where we just break into group out. We'll go into like breakout groups and we'll make speeches for each other. But we can only do that for good things. I will teach you how to do the stuff for like the serious things, but let me type this one. Ye dot. Oops, let me make this everybody. So this first one is our ancestors are supporting you all. So ye dot, sorry, there's a typo in there. Let me fix that. Ye dot nak. Let me try it again. Apparently can't talk and type at the same time. Ye dot has nak. Xíxch kohas, there it is. Our, and so it depends, right? So this is how you would say, all of our ancestors are supporting you. But then you could say it slightly, it wouldn't actually change that much, but you could also say something like, we are this clan and our ancestors are supporting you as this other clan. But we'll have to do that one later. But I'll put this thing up so you have these phrases that they're just good. They're good to have. They're good to say to each other. And in some ways, like the ways that our people hold each other up is really significant. And that's for us to use, even for outside of the context of Tlingit culture, because there's a lot of cultures that get really uncertain when it comes to the loss of human life. And Tlingit has a bunch of stuff in there because there's a pretty definitive process for how to do this. But then there's also lots of wiggle room in there too, in terms of how people choose to grieve and to overcome that grief or move, you never move past it, but you move on though. So we will we're going to keep going with the story. Next week we'll also start looking at I'll probably push us not just towards some other chapters that are doing like learning how to switch the object and the subject. We're going to have to practice that stuff and then start moving into location and direction. And then we have to start moving into some verb work, but we'll get there. So let's see. I think you were all supposed to write 4 sentences and share them with us. So if you haven't done that yet, just bring 4 sentences on Tuesday that you'll share. We'll start with sentences. I think I forgot today, but I was just giving you a chance to keep writing them. So, Xíxch, Han. You go ahead.
Xíxch.
Xíxch, say a question.
Xíxch.
Xíxch.
My 4 sentences were a puppet show.
Oh man, you gotta do that on Tuesday. Bring them out.
So
Oh,
Stacy, I was trying to get a raven sound on my phone. She's like, "What are you doing?" For like half an hour. She goes, "Should I be concerned on why you're spending so much time listening to raven calls?" Trying to find the perfect one.
Yeah, right. There's freesounds.org. There's some good ones on there. I think it's called.
Oh, good. Maybe I'll check that out. I just gave up and I was like, I might just make it an otter instead.
Okay. Good as cheese.